Hey folks, I've got a little maintenance issue with my mini Dozer. Been putting it off for most of the summer. It's been pretty warm. Haven't had really a need to use it, but I do need to work on a little bit. I got two things. One, the left track seems to not have as much power as the right track. I don't know if I can fix that or not. It may just be an adjustment in the swash plate linkage on the two hydrostats, or that hydrostat. We'll see. And then the other one is leaking carburetor. I've got the bottom main jet adjustment on the carburetor that's on that machine. It's dripping a little bit of fuel, and I mean, I've got the petcock closed off in the tank, but it is leaking. So bring it up here to the shop and see if we can address those two issues. Amps. Let's see if we can get the engine started here. I'm lucky I'm able to get non-ethanol gas here where I am. That's all I run in these. Well, there's Brew Brew. There's my Brutus. Alright folks, this is my mini bulldozer. Built this from a CATdet. Actually took 2 CATdets to build this. And for those of you that are new to the channel or haven't seen any of the videos on this bulldozer, the build, which I built a couple of years ago, I'll give you just a real quick rundown. Brutus is interested. He hadn't seen this in a couple of years, probably. All right, so this is a CATdet. Frame's been lengthened. It's got 2 CATdet transmissions. I can show you one, transaxles actually, and transmissions. So this is one. It's a standard CATdet from mid-70s, and cast iron transaxle with a hydrostatic drive. So on this particular axle, the left side sprocket is driven, the right side sprocket freewheels. There's an identical transmission like this up front, and on this one, this side drives, the sprocket's driven, and the other one freewheels. So because of the way the transmissions are set up, in order to have independent drive on the 2 tracks, you have to have individual drives for each track. I mean, modern skid steers have hydraulic motors, one for each track. I wanted to use CATdet components, so I disabled one side of one axle and disabled the other side of the other axle. I mean, it's not ideal having front drive on one side and rear drive on the other, but it seems to work okay. I haven't really had an issue with it. Now, it's a high wheel design like this. Normally this would be, the high wheel would be the location for the drive motor, the final drive. On this particular build, because I have 2 fixed transaxles, there was really no way to tension the track, so this is the track tensioner. So this wheel, high wheel, pivots up and down on a pivot point, pivots on a pivot point down here, and uses this top link to tension it. So that's the track tensioner. There's one on each side. It's a CATdet engine, 14 horsepower, K-series, Kohler. The blade is a 5-foot blade. It just is a little bit wider than the tracks on the machine, and it has this angle cylinder and a tilt cylinder and a pair of up and down cylinders that control the height of the blade. Now, all the hydraulics on the blade are run off the hydrostatic transmission, has auxiliary ports. Now, they're only about 1 GPM at 600 psi, so the cylinder operation speed is relatively slow. So that makes it a little challenging to control the blade, because you really can't quickly move the blade as you might on a commercial machine. So it is a little limited in that regard. The front of the tractor is actually a 3-point hitch, and it doesn't necessarily look like that, but you can undo a couple quick disconnects and the entire blade assembly comes off the machine. So there's the 2 lower links here, one on each side, and then this would be the top link up here. And I mean, the top link cylinder doesn't have quick disconnects, but it can stay with the machine, and the quick disconnects here handle the blade angle cylinder, so you can drop the whole arrangement. Potentially add additional implements, though I don't have anything else in mind or currently built. I haven't tried to put anything else on it. All right, the job at hand today is adjust the transmissions. I'm having an issue with the left track stalling because it's not getting enough power, and I think it's because of the linkage in the hydrostatic transmissions. It's not going all the way, so we're going to get into that. It's going to be relatively straightforward. It's under this panel here where the control sticks are, so I'm going to get that panel off and see what we can do. You've probably seen me operate this handle here. This is a clutch assembly or belt tensioner. And in the up position, the belts are loose. There's 2 drive belts that go from the engine down to a common drive shaft between the 2 transmissions. And the purpose for the drive, and there's 2 drive belts. They're not matched, so they're not both needed for power transmission, because one belt would transmit the necessary power, since it's going from a high speed engine to a much lower speed transmission. There's not that much torque on the belts, and so one belt's sufficient, but the 2 belts are used for redundancy. So because they're not matched belts, one belt's going to fail before the other. It's going to carry most of the load and it'll fail, but that'll leave me with one belt to still get me home. So that's the purpose for the dual belts, and we can take a look at them in a minute. If you're interested in more detail about this machine, you can go back on my channel a couple of years, and there's a whole build series where I built this basically from scratch. I cut all the steel, I built the tracks, I did use a large chain to connect the track pads, and sprockets. I did purchase the sprockets and the chain, but everything else I fabricated. So I have a CNC plasma table, cut out all the parts on that, and there's some structural steel pieces on here, but a lot of it's cut from plate steel. So anyway, let's get started on the transmission adjustment. And so this one seems to have go back further than that one. But it is going to the limit of travel on the transmission. Yeah, so these 2 rods, this one they have turnbuckles on them for adjustment, controlled hydrostats. All right, so these 2 to control sticks, actuate these long rods. There's turnbuckles. One goes forward, this one goes forward, this one goes to the rear. And my thought was, since this is the left track, going forward here, I think this adjustment is at the limit of travel of the hydrostat. Oh. So there are sensitivity adjustments, like this drop rod here has 1, 2, 3 holes in it, and they adjust the sensitivity of these control handles. The further down on here you put this connecting rod, the less movement of this handle was required to operate the hydrostat. All right, so my thought that there was some additional travel is not correct. It's at its limit of travel. And that's controlled within the hydrostat. That's the swash plate geometry. So there's no way to increase the travel on the transmission itself. Once the swash plate has a boss on the back of it which limits its travel. I had them synced pretty well when I built it, so I'm not surprised that this is the situation. I'm going to just assume, maybe it's an assumption, that it is what it is. I don't think there's, at this point, I don't think there's anything I can do about it. I mean, the only solution is to remove the hydrostat, disassemble it, remove the swash plate, mill the back side of the swash plate, the boss, more to get more travel on the swash plate. There's, if you go back a couple of years, fall 21, when I was working on this, and there were several episodes on, where I disassembled the transmissions and milled the bosses of the swash plates. You can go back and look at those videos and see the modifications I made to the transmissions. Yeah, I don't see there's anything I can do. All right, well, I got another problem. I'll show you. Put this back together. All right, so I have an issue with this carburetor. It has a main jet screw at the bottom, which is different from all the other Kohler carburetors that I've worked on. And I don't know why this engine had this on it. It was this way when I got it. I don't know. It may be a replacement. It looks identical. I'd have to take it off to see if it's actually a Carb or Walbro. But having the main jet adjustment down here just is inviting leaks from the bowl, and that's what I'm having. This screw gasket in the jet adjustment leaks, and it's unusual because most of the carburetors on these tractors are like this. Most of the carburetors that come on these tractors are like this. Now this is a import reproduction carburetor. Normally replace these carburetors, if you get a legitimate one, they're $200 or $300. This is like $30. I've never run one of these, though I've read about people that have used them. They've been mixed reviews. So I purchased this a couple of years ago as a spare, and see, it doesn't have the main jet adjustment screw on the bottom. It has it on the top right here, which is where it should be. Anyway, I'm going to put this carb on, and we'll see how it runs. I drained the carb last night, shut off the fuel petcock last night so it wouldn't leak down in the shop here. Wow, that wasn't good. Okay, there must have been a little bit left in the filter. All right, that means there may be some fuel in the bowl. We'll find out. May need that for the new carb. Okay. That's a choke cable. That's the throttle. All right, the bowl was empty. All right, so this says Walbro. So this is a Walbro carb. Everybody hated these carbs. Late in the production, they started putting Walbro instead of Carter carbs on these tractors. I don't know that they put any originally on the vintage of this tractor, which would have been 72 to 74. I thought it was in later models, 76, the Quiet Line series. But don't know for sure. Anyway, nobody liked them because most of them only had one jet to operate it. The main jet was fixed, so they were harder to adjust to run correctly, so people didn't like them. Now, this one had the bottom jet adjustment, so I had not seen that before. That's a little loose. All right, I'm going to get some Teflon tape for this. bowl fill. I don't see it overflowing. There are vents. The bowl is vented, obviously, so fuel can be pulled out of it and be replaced. I don't see it overflowing or anything, so that's a good sign. Let's see if we can get it started. Oh, need to adjust the jets. Let's do that. 2.5 turns on this one. It feels like that's about where it was. One, 2.5, and then 3.25 on this one. Let's see how many it is. 1, 2. That's only 2. So we'll go 1, 2, 3.25. That's for 14 horsepower engine. The adjustments are a little different. It's 2.5 turns for a 12 horsepower engine. Uses the same carb. There were two. I understand there were 2 different size carbs. One for the 8 and 10, one for the 12 and 14. And I did see, and I just went and looked at the book, the service manual, Kohler service manual, and there were 2 Walbro carbs, one with the fixed main jet and one with an adjustable jet, which is what we just took off. I had never dealt with one with an adjustable jet like that. So I don't remember seeing it when I put this engine in here. I've worked on so many engines, I don't remember which ones I've rebuilt and which ones I haven't. So clearly I've at least painted this one. Being a 14, this is a 14, I'm going to say I did not rebuild this engine. I don't recall. Okay. So I adjust the main jet from its recommended starting position. Now this recommended starting position for this carb does not match the book. So I'm going to say the tolerances on the jets are different. So this only took, let's see how many turns that is. It was supposed to be 3.25. Let's see, we're at 1, 2, 2.25. So 1, 2.25. 2.5 is typical for a smaller engine. But anyway, so I'm going to say the tolerances on the jets on this, and I'm assuming this is a Chinese knockoff of the Carter carb, it's identical to the Carter carb in appearances. So that's 2 1/4. So I adjust it so that I adjust it rich till it kind of stumbles a little bit and get some black smoke out the exhaust. And then I go lean, turn it in until it goes leaner, but I leave it on the rich side. I don't go all the way. These engines run better on a little bit on the rich side than on the lean side. They run hot if you run them lean. So I think that's fine. Let me put the air filter back on and we'll take it out for a little test run. Oh, there's my Butchie. Here's Butchie. Where's Brew Brew? There's Butchie. There's Butchie. How you doing, huh? Sit. Wanna sit? That's a good boy. Yeah, give me that paw. Give me that paw. My good boy. My good boy. What you doing, huh? What you doing? Where's Brew Brew? Oh, I hear Brew Brew coming. Okay, how you doing? What have you been up to? Huh? What have you been up to? Now, Brutus weighs about 10 pounds less than Butchie, and I think the extra weight on Butchie is not good for him. The vet said he's fine, but Brew Brew's a little more energetic. He's got more energy. Replace the little screws, Phillips head screws, with these socket head cap screws. And I can tell the threads inside the carb are snug. Those threads are a lot looser on that one. Or maybe there's just some debris. Okay. Filter. Cover. Wing nut. All right, let's run it with the air filter on just to make sure it's still okay. All right, so this is a float link. You can see there's a space here for the blade to move up and down without the cylinder moving. I mean, I can move this pin to this point and that would remove the float. I mean, it's not a lot of float, but it's a couple inches here, which is, you know, 4 or 5 inches at the blade. Anyway, so the other side is not in float, so I need to move it. All right, so you can see this is in the solid hole. All right, guys, finished up grooming the little short section of the driveway here that is shared between me and one neighbor. So it's just the only issue with it, the road's in great condition, there's no potholes or anything, it's just a little hump in the middle. So I was just pushing that, you know, to the 2 tire tracks to kind of level it off a little bit. There's a bunch of pine needles on it, so clean them off, and you're just touching it up, not a big deal. Anyway, that's it for this video. Subscribe if you haven't already. It doesn't cost anything, helps the channel out. A thumbs up and share with your friends would be great. Thanks for watching. See you next time.